Hi everyone. So welcome to this video, and in this video we're going to discuss now literature review in an approach that how you're going to make your thematic. Now, this is now a research that was conducted by me and Mr. Concepcion during 20 school year 2022-2023. So this is our SOP. So technically, how I'm gonna start now working with my literature review. Now let's start with working with your keywords. So my keywords, I'm going to work out. Remember when you're having you have now your SOP. So I'm going to have now this one as one of my keyword and the main topic, which is the hypertext modality. Now, looking at this one, I have my subvariable. So technically, these also are my keywords. And then this is my keyword and then the action plan as part of our solution. Now, if you have your keywords now, first of all would be looking now on my hypertext modality. Next, I work with experiences of teachers. And then sub of that, so we have now learning environment and then class community. We have lesson design, engagement, and interactivity, and then assessment and feedback. Mhm. So I would now have what we call sub theme. Technically, it could be by words. However, you can look at it. And then I have now challenges. Of teachers in high flex modality and then action plans. Okay. Now, this is now the keyword. So this could be now my themes in working. Now, let's improve this one. So when you improve this one, improving that, let me have now this one. Let's improve. If you identify that, this would part now as your question. Okay, what idea would you like to look at for hyplex modality? You can now have now a question. What is hyflex modality? So technically, that's a question that you want to answer. And then, what are so in the hyflex modality, you would like to ask now the question. So this would refer to the experience. This would refer to your keyword or your key topic, which is hyflex modality. So you look at now researchers working with that, and then the theme that you like would work on the experiences. So this would be a literature. What are the experiences of teachers in hyflex modality? Now you're gonna search now some researches or literature that would give you a research with that. And then what are the challenges of teachers? So technically, sir, may I ask where are the submodality the sub. So you can now look at now as this five would work inside so that you'll have now a current working with that. Oops. Okay, let me have that. Mhm. So technically, it's just like repeating, right? Am I right? Repeating on that. So you would look at now this one as under in terms. So that's how it works. And then what are the challenges of teachers? So you'll now work out on your literature review. Now, how to have that? So if you have that question, you can now use now your one tool would be Copilot. So I work out with HyFlex Learning. However, that's not yet. So I'm gonna use now an AI that could help me work with that. So these are now HyFlex about working with the HyFlex. So you can now read now this one, and then you can now create now your outline for your literature review. So I get the references. So it gives me around 5 references. What is Hyflex? So you need to read this one and then work with that. So good thing is that if you have this one, so there are 2 ways on how to look at. Another tool that I'm going to give you now is what we call Scribber. Now, whenever you write now your literature review, so I'm going to go with citing generator rather. So I'm working with this one. So for example, this one. Hmm, look at that. I accept. Okay. Now let's go now a new. This is how I worked that out on my thesis. Now let's work now on a different set. So I'm gonna create a list. So I'm using now the APA because APA stands for American Psychological Association. So this is what we're using in our research. But there are other citing or how do you call this referencing style. So sample list. Now let's go with sample citation. Now when I go with sample citation, remember that I copied this one, this URL. Okay, this URL we're gonna give you now this one, and then you can now cite that. So I'm citing now. So how I'm gonna read that? I'm gonna do that when it comes to your. There's no because I believe web page. Are you sure? So I think if that's the case, we cannot use that. Let's have this one. It's in the Times Higher Education. So let's have this one. Let's try this one now. I believe this would work because it's in the Times Higher Education. So it's citing. Now it will give you 3 things. How to cite or when you write. So when you write, this is the thing that you work out. Uh-huh. We have what we call the parenthetical, the high flex learning by How, and more citation option. So these are what we call the parenthetical, and then we have the other way, which is the narrative. Parenthetical is that you look at that in a way that when you're referencing it. Okay. Another example is that let's look at now the real thing that the paper that was been created by Layage and Concepcion. Mhm. Let's look at this one. As you can see, this is now we can have worked that out. So as you can see, this is how this article. Let's look at now the article. How are we going to look at it? So we can now add this one. So let's look at that. Hmm. Actually, this is the parenthetical way, but there are other, or you, when you cite that. Mm, okay. That's how it works. And how you look at the we call this referencing. So there are two things. Okay, let's go back to the word and how to create now. So remember that you have a guide question, but this is the paper of Layage and Concepcion. Let's look at this one. Remember that this one, you need to outline as well your answer. How do you outline your answer? Technically, you want to define. So, definition of high flex. And then, after having definition, you look at on studies and find some findings. So, what are the meaning? Then, after meaning, what are the status? So, you can look at in an aspect of national and then international. So you have now working with that. When it comes to the experience, remember you look at now one by one or categorize the experiences that you look at. You can put that in this manner so that it would support now your SOP. When it comes to the challenges or what are the problems that encounter. So this there it requires a lot of reading. And on the next part now, for this week task is that you need to create now is your guide question and your answer. Now, when I have my guide question, remember this is my guide question. Now, I'm going to create now my themes. Okay. Now, my themes would be the title of my guide question. When I read a lot of things, now, for example, the theme one is the high flex modality. So, why is high flex modality is my theme one? Because under that, I answered this question. So, I created now a title. Now, next, on my theme two, I worked that out with this one, the experiences of teachers in high flex. Theme three works with the challenges of teachers in high flex modality. So technically, those are my theme. Now, for this week, what you need to look at now is go back to your SOP, get your keywords, create now a guide question so that you have a direction when working with your literature review. And then make a title or category for each of the themes that you want to look at. And then we're gonna work it out. You're not yet working with what you need, how to create it because that's a different session. However, you need to create now your guide question and then creating now your titles. So that those are the themes and a requirement for a literature. So let's look at now the paper. What happened to the paper? In this paper, as you can see, very simple, very demure. So hybrid modality, however, this is the start of the literature review, but it's not required. We will look at on a different paper later. Now, hybrid modality, working this one, however, implementing those are now overall hybrid modality. Now, I cited now what's happening in JRU. And then now looking now on the learning environment. Now look at this one. This now the what we call the narrative way. In a study of RAES 2022, so this is other way on how to cite. And then I have now another here in the classroom, but in the report of Microsoft in 2020, that's what we call a narrative. And then this one, I cited now a study known as the understanding by design or the universal understanding by design. However, here I work out with UDL or universal design. So as you can see, working with that. Pero in this case, it's not thematic that workout. We integrated it. Now let's look at now a paper with that kind. So let's look at now another paper where the thematic works. Let's look at now on a paper created by Layage. Layage, Capitos, and this was yesterday. I believe this. No, dami. Mm, ayun. Here. It was a write-up during June 18. Let's look at this one. Okay, this is a paper created by Layage, Capitos, Cala, and Legaspi. Now, the abstract, we have now the abstract. Now, introduction, looking at the introduction, the SOP, and then literature review. We started with theoretical framework, but we'll not work at with that in you because I will have a different topic with that. Conceptual framework, you have this one. Now, the first thing that we look at is the outcomes-based education and assessment. Very simple, very demure. Now, we look at now the theme of sustainable development goal for quality education. And then we work that out on a context of where we are doing the research, which is the CQR, or the what we call the continuous quality improvement in JRU. Now, those are the thing, and then in the latter part, you need to create a synthesis. Here, I believe this is just a draft. Wala pa kaming synthesis, or we didn't created yet the synthesis, but eventually what the thing that we're going to do, or the findings that you had. And then this is now the method, but those are the next thing that we would like. Okay, I think that's enough for now. Thank you very much.